You record as well?
Yes.
Okay. So welcome everyone to the Buddhist path of awakening as we continue through Shantideva's The Way of the Bodhisattva. Let's bow in. And welcome. So we're on verse 31. Michael last week took us through 30. And but I want to go back just a little bit to verses 28, 9, and 30, where he says, merit is the true cause of the body's ease, while happiness of mind is had through understanding. What can sadden those who have compassion, who remain within samsara for the sake of beings? And this is all about achieving happiness through the cultivation of bodhicitta, true happiness. The true course of the body's ease is merit. Supposedly, if you live a good life or live good past lives, your body will be healthier and you'll have more ease. Mental well-being is the result not of outer pleasures, but of taming our minds, letting go of preconceptions, and opening ourselves to others. We tend to walk through our days lost in dreams, talking to ourselves a lot of the time, and the conversations are not always nice. They often produce anxiety, anger, the kleshas, the defilements, jealousy. Those are the really nasty ones. And then the not as nasty are passion, pride. So basically, when we practice meditation, especially shamatha, we are coming back from all that to awareness in the present moment. And then when we practice vipassana, we not only come back to awareness in the present moment out of those nasty thoughts and dreams, but we come back to complete awareness, openness, here and now. And that awareness is leading to the understanding of emptiness. Because in true awareness, we see things as they actually are, not as we conceive them to be. And that is the doorway to reality. The doorway into, and reality is called in the Buddhist lexicon, shunyata, emptiness. Empty of what? Empty of belief in I and other, in this and that, and instead just pure, simple, clear, intelligent awareness, filled with compassion as well. And we'll be coming to that in the chapter after next, the chapter on wisdom. So the bodhisattvas travel endlessly through all the realms out of compassion for sentient beings in those realms. They even go to hell because they are not part of it. They are not seduced by the suffering of hell or the jealous God realm or the hungry ghost realm. They are, and yet they can go to those realms, and they do, and help the people there, help the beings there, help them wake up, help them step out of suffering. And that's what a bodhisattva's job is. And he says, for through their power of bodhicitta, I'm reading verse 29, former sins are totally consumed, and merit, ocean vast, is gathered in. It is therefore said, they, the bodhisattvas, excel the Shravakas. The Shravakas are the Hinayana practitioners who only want to escape suffering, whereas the bodhisattvas are consumed with the idea of helping others. Mounted on the horse of bodhicitta, which puts flight to all mournful weariness, bodhicitta, awake mind. And so there's no mourning, there's no weariness. What lucid person could be in despair proceeding in this way from joy to joy? And he used at first the wind as a metaphor for enthusiasm, and now it's a horse that carries us from joy to joy. And the title of this chapter, in the way of the Bodhisattva, translated by Padmakara, they call it diligence. That's one word for it. Pema, in her commentary, calls it enthusiasm. The word in Sanskrit is virya. I can't remember what it is in Tibetan. Is it sundro? Anybody know? In any event, it can be translated variously, but one of the main way in which it's being communicated here is a sense of joy, enthusiasm, and resolve to tread the path, because the alternative is so unacceptable. It's the alternative is suffering. Now, many of us are aging, and we're watching people die around us. My partner, Val, works down at the Shambhala Center in Boulder. The number of deaths and the death ceremonies, which are called sukhavitis in the Buddhist tradition, it's just amazing every week. There are people that I don't know, but who are in the Sangha. There are people that I do know. And sooner or later, it's going to come for each one of us. I'm 79. If I live another 15 years, which will be less than a fifth of the life I've lived so far, I'll get to be about 94 if I make it that far. And it's going so fast. I mean, 14 years ago, I was 65, and I just had my second daughter was born. It just went like that, finger snap. Our lives are going very, very quickly, and it really behooves us to wake up, to bodhicitta, to awakened mind. It's the only way to die. At some point, we'll go through the death teachings, and what they tell us is that the only way to die properly is awake. Awake here and now. The Dalai Lama said in one of the things that I read that at that time, at least, he was studying the Bardo of dying, which describes what happens when you die in detail, because he wanted to be prepared and not to be surprised by what was going to happen to him when he died. So he was studying it in detail. We can go through that at another time. I have those teachings on the painful bardo of dying. So it really, really behooves us to awaken to bodhicitta, to cultivate bodhicitta. It's the ultimate that we can do. And to then, out of inspiration from that, devote ourselves to benefiting other sentient beings, to being bodhisattvas, because that will produce a happy life and a happy state of mind in life and death. So let's start reading the reading for this week. We'll do verse 31.
Okay, and if people who are interested in reading could put their hands up, use the reactions button.
Thank you.
Okay, so Carolyn?
Verse 31.
The forces that secure the good of beings are aspiration, steadfastness, relinquishment, and joy. Aspiration grows through fear of suffering and contemplation of the benefits to be attained.
Yep, this is just what I've been talking about. This aspiration comes from the fear of suffering by giving in habitually to neurosis, and from the clarity about the benefits to be gained by awakening to bodhicitta. Guaranteed, it says. Let's do the next verse.
Okay, Steve, could you read verse 32?
Therefore, leaving everything that is adverse to it, I'll labor to increase my diligence through aspiration and self-confidence, relinquishment, and joy.
Yeah, these are the four strengths, and he's going to rely on them to carry him forward. But he's going to rely to increase his virya, which is both, it's not just diligence. Diligence sounds so workish, like you're working hard. You're having to be a good person. This is full of joy, virya, energy. Sometimes it's translated as energy. And as I say, Pema translates it as enthusiasm. Let's do the next two verses.
Okay, let's see. Philip, could you read the next two?
The boundless evils of myself and others, I must bring them all to nothing, even though a single of these ills may take unnumbered ages to exhaust. And if I find within myself no sign that faults are even starting to be cleansed, why does my heart not burst asunder, destined as I am for boundless pain?
Yeah. First, he says that no matter how difficult, he won't be discouraged. Then he has second thoughts. Does he have what it takes? He's not going to let self-doubt hold him back. And this is really the case for all of us. At any given time when we sit and meditate and we think, I'm not a good meditator, let that go. We all are good meditators. We all have bodhicitta within us. And really what this path is about is learning to affirm that, learning to recognize and come into it with joy. It's there for all of us, every one of us, even the most benighted. That's a joke. Okay, let's read the next one.
Henry, verse 35.
Good qualities for my and others' sake, though they may be many, I must now accomplish, even though for each of them I must endeavor for unnumbered ages.
So Shantideva's resolve to work the path no matter what, because we all have what it takes to wake up. And he's encouraging us. He knows that he is, and we are, as capable as the Buddha himself to awaken, as capable as the Buddha himself to awaken. Thousands of people have done it over the centuries, thousands and thousands, maybe millions, who knows. We can do it too, to awaken, to wake up to this life. Okay. Someone to read the next three verses, 36, 38.
Fred?
Fred? Yeah.
Acquaintance I have never gained with even part of such great qualities. It is indeed amazing that I render meaningless this life that somehow I have gained. Offerings to the Buddhas I have never made. No feasts were ever held through my donations. No works have I accomplished for the teachings. The wishes of the poor I left unsatisfied. I have not saved the frightened from their fear. The wretched I have not consoled. My mother's pain, her womb's discomfort. These alone are my accomplishments.
So Shantideva is acknowledging that he spent so much time being selfish, and he is not discouraged, not just selfish, but self-deprecating, pessimistic about his life and his abilities. And he's urging us to give that up. It's a waste of our good time. He wants us all to become Buddhas, or at least Bodhisattvas, and then Buddhas. Okay, how about the next verse, 39?
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, sorry. My failure to aspire to Dharma, now and in the past, has brought me to this present dereliction, who therefore would spurn such aspiration.
It's more of the same. He's affirming aspiration. Basically, we have to come to grips with the fact that this life is going to end. And we're mired in unhappiness in all kinds of ways. And we need to awaken to bodhicitta, to the awakened mind, which is here, very positive. And really, the inspiration that bodhicitta plants in us is to be of service to others, to be of help to others in all the realms. Now, what that means is that we might be helping someone who's living in the hell realm. You know, you walk down the streets of Manhattan, at least when I was there 3 years ago, and you in certain areas especially, there'd be people walking along who were really crazy. Somebody walking down the street screaming and shouting and talking to him or herself. I mean, these people are suffering and certainly asking for money, all of that. That's pandemic now, if you pardon the word. So there's a tremendous suffering in the world, and we could be inspired to be of help to others however we can. This is the aspiration. What are we up to, 40?
Yeah.
Okay, let's read 40.
Okay, Judith.
Aspiration, so the sage asserted, is the root of every kind of virtue. Aspiration's root, in turn, is constant meditation on the fruits of action.
And what he's saying about the fruits of action, that's karma. Constant meditation and looking at how our happiness or unhappiness is produced by our states of mind and our actions. So we need to be aware of that and come back into awareness. The awareness practice that we do, the practice that we do together, shamatha vipassana, that vipassana goes all the way to the end of the path. It becomes dzogchen, great perfection. The clear awareness of this present moment and everything that's happening in it. And what goes along with that is love and compassion for the whole world. Let's read the next 3 verses.
Okay. Steve?
The body's pains, anxieties of mind, and all my fears of various kinds, to be deprived of what I want, such is the harvest of my sinful deeds. But if my acts are good, sincerely intended, then no matter where I turn my steps, the merit gained will honor me with its resulting benefits. But if, through seeking happiness, my deeds are wrong, no matter where I turn my steps, the knives of misery will cut me down, the wage and retribution of a sinful life.
So generosity and kindness to others will produce happy results for them and for you, and vice versa. Stinginess will produce, unhappy results for them and for yourself. Cultivating bodhicitta, wisdom and compassion, is the key. It's ironic, isn't it, that by waking up to what is actually real, we become compassionate, clear-seeing, open, and live a happier life. It's by remaining in the pit of our preconceptions, our wrongful preconceptions that we suffer and cause others to. And death is coming, and he's urging us, do it now while we still have time. Let's read the next two verses.
Carolyn?
Is that 44?
Yes, 44 and 45.
Through virtue, I will rest within the cool heart of a fragrant spreading lotus, with splendor nurtured by the sweet words of the conqueror. Then from the lotus opened in the sage's light, in supreme form, I will rise to dwell the blissful Buddha's air in presence of victorious ones. Or else as wages of my many sins, my skin completely flayed, I shall be utterly brought low by creatures of the Lord of Death, who on my body pour a liquid bronze all melted in the dreadful blaze, and pierced by burning swords and knives, my flesh, dismembered in 100 parts, will fall upon the white-hot iron ground.
Ooh. Oh.
I don't think I'm mincing words here, do you? These two verses, they give us the alternatives. It's up to us to choose. Now, we all in this room have achieved a human birth. In both ways. In other words, we're born into a physical human body, as opposed to being born a dog or a cat or a god or a jealous god, but also to more or less, I'm assuming that most of the people, if not all, have the mentality of a human being. That is, they're not you're not suffering in hell. If you were, you'd be able to converse sanely in this room with us. And you're not blissed out in the God realm. If you were, you wouldn't be interested in this. Really, the human realm, the human mentality, is the absolute best for treading the path. And we have this precious opportunity to take advantage of it. In doing so, we lose ourselves, our egotism, our self-concern, and we step into this beautiful, free, clear world with compassion and clear seeing for everybody. Are we at 747 now?
46 is the next one.
So let's read 46, 47, and 48.
Okay, Philip?
Therefore, I will aspire and tend to virtue and steep myself in it with great devotion, and with the method stated in the Vaja, I will train in confident assurance. Let me first consider my reserves, to start or not to start accordingly. It might be better not to start, but once begun, I should not then withdraw. For if I do such things, the pattern will return in later lives, and sin and pain will grow, and other actions will be left undone, or else will bear a meager fruit.
So this is steadfastness. He's encouraging himself to be steadfast in his efforts, committed, so that he doesn't get seduced by self-doubt. Remember Trungpa Rinpoche saying self-doubt is the Buddhist version of original sin. It destroys everything. So he says, consider whether to start or not. Am I up to it? I don't want to fail. Whether it is helping others or meditation, stick with it. Sit every day. Don't be swayed by emotional storms, but continue to practice. And Trungpa Rinpoche often said that treading the path is like being in the middle of an operation. You've got your stomach open and they're cutting you apart, and you are just right there. So this is a constant injunction to us. It's like the 4 reminders. Death is real, comes without warning, this body will be a corpse. We have to take advantage of this time. So how about the next verse, 49?
Okay. Henry?
Action, the afflictions, and ability. 3 things to which my pride should be directed. I will do this, I myself alone. These words define my pride of action.
Right. Confidence to conquer neurosis and develop bodhicitta. You say here, pride of action means confidence. Discuss false and genuine. That was a note to myself. False confidence is saying, I'm confident, I can do it. True confidence, in the Buddhist sense, is silent. You just know it and you don't even have to say it. You know that you can raise your hand. You don't have to tell yourself you can do it. That's true confidence. False confidence is like you bolster yourself. Shantideva knows he can act with true confidence and address the kleshas, the afflictions, and exercise his ability to connect with bodhicitta, basic goodness. Basic goodness means, see, bodhicitta, awakened mind, sees the fundamental goodness of this world and appreciates it. Positive pride is the spark of life, energizing one. Ordinary pride is neurotic and makes us weaker. Okay, let's read the next verse.
Okay. Mark?
Overpowered by their minds' afflictions, worldly folk are helpless to secure their happiness. Compared with those who wander, I am able. This therefore shall be my task.
There it is again. If you believe that, if you don't have any awareness of the path to bodhicitta, you live in the vale of tears, the world of klesha, shenpa, being hooked constantly, walking along, talking to yourself and telling yourself stories that have to do with the poisons, pride, jealousy, passion, hunger, stupidity, and anger. So he rouses his positive pride, his true self-confidence, to be able to follow the path of the Bodhisattva, which means to wake up and to be awake and to know that he's awake with confidence. Okay, let's read the next verse.
Okay. Judith?
When, let's see, 51.
Yes.
When others give themselves to low behavior, what shall be my stance in their regard? In any case, I'll not be arrogant. My best way is to give up such conceit.
Yeah. He's not going to be arrogant about those who are still ignorant and proud and neurotic. Rather, he'd be of help. Let's read the next verse.
Okay, Sarah?
When they find a dying serpent, even crows behave like soaring eagles. Therefore, if I'm weak and feeble-hearted, even little faults will strike and injure me.
Yeah, he's talking about here about false pride, like being a crow and behaving like an eagle because the serpent is dying. And he's also talking about avoiding poverty mentality. That's what Trungpa Rinpoche used to call it, of thinking I'm just a poor little wretch, that we're all small, weak, and inadequate, which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe it, you start acting that way. So he's enjoining us to maintain self-confidence through bodhicitta. True confidence is everything. Let's read the next verse.
But if depressed, I give up trying. How can I gain freedom from my abject state? But if I stand my ground with proud resolve, it will be hard for even great faults to attack me.
So he's expressing his resolve not to give up, not to give in to feelings of inadequacy. We can see our limitations, but we don't need to succumb to them. They're not a big deal, but are temporary, in no way affect our fundamental Buddha nature. So practice. Rinpoche used to say, it's so easy. That's why nobody believes it works. All right. The next verse.
Steve?
Therefore, with a steadfast heart, I'll get to the better of my weaknesses. But if my failings get the upper hand, my wish to overcome the triple world is laughable indeed.
Again, he's enjoining us to be steadfast. This is all about being steadfast, the first of those four virtues, and not to become depressed or give up on ourselves in any way. Let's read the next verse.
Okay, Carolyn?
Carolyn.
Sorry, I'm here. What number is it?
55.
55. I will be victor over all, and nothing shall prevail and bring me down. The offspring of the lion, the conqueror, should constantly abide in this self-confidence.
And so should we. He's enjoining us to be like this. I will be victor over all. Over all what? Over all my neuroses and sadness and depression and self-reference. And nothing shall prevail and bring me down. The offspring of the lion, the conqueror, should constantly abide in this self-confidence. So the offspring, that's us. The offspring of the lion, the conqueror, that's the Buddha. And we're his offspring, should constantly abide in this self-confidence that we can do it. Let's read the next verse.
Philip?
Those whom arrogance destroys are thus defiled. They lack self-confidence. Those who have true confidence escape the foe, while others fall into the power of an evil pride.
Yeah, and I think of public figures who demonstrate arrogance, and they really are covering up their lack of self-confidence, their poor opinion of themselves. I'm sure, and without naming names, I don't want to get political here, but it's around us all the time, and it produces evil, because in affirming one's arrogance, one commits a crime. One harms others for one's own sake. Let's read the next two verses.
Okay. Henry?
When arrogance inflates the mind, it draws it down to states of misery, or ruins happiness should human birth be gained. Thus one is born a slave, dependent strength, the butt and laughing stock of everyone. These ascetics puffed up with conceit. If these you call the proud, then tell me who are wretched.
Who are wretched?
Did we hear all that?
Most of it.
Did it break up?
Most of it.
Sorry.
And everybody can read it. So arrogance again, and how wretched it is, how it draws us down to states of misery, and is really an expression of our self-hatred when we're arrogant. We don't have any confidence in ourselves, true confidence. Those who have true confidence escape the foe, he says, the foe meaning neurosis, klesha, while others fall into the power of evil pride. Did we read 57 and 58? Was it?
Yeah, that's what was just read.
Sorry.
50.
So here he's mocking false pride and arrogance, which lead to an unhappy life. True confidence, on the other hand, uplifts us. It comes from the understanding that we are all truly Buddhas. All. Everybody. No matter which realm they're in psychologically. Fundamentally, they're Buddhas, even right down to gnats and fleas and flies. So let's go on with the next verse.
Okay, Judith, verse 59.
Those who uphold pride to vanquish pride, the enemy, are truly proud, victorious, and brave. And they who stem the increase of that evil pride, perfect according to their wish, the fruit of victory for beings.
Right. So this is true pride versus neurotic pride again. True pride brings benefit to oneself and others because it sees the fundamental goodness of life and of other human beings. And it affirms that and draws it out, speaks to that. The next verse.
Sarah?
When I am beleaguered, thank you, by defilements, I will stand and face them in 1,000 ways. I'll not surrender to the host of the afflictions, but like a lion, I will stand amid a crowd of foxes.
And the way in which we overcome the kleshas, these afflictions, these stories, these self-attacking and other attacking stories, is first of all by becoming aware of them, by becoming aware that we're having this dream. And when we see it, we can let it go. It always is based on a story of some kind, a conceptual story, and then it's lit by feeling. The feeling may be anger or jealousy or whatever it may be, pride. So first we have to bring awareness to it. And this is the practice of meditation, seeing one's thoughts without being critical of them. If one's critical of them, then you sort of suppress them, you push them away. You just see them. That's all it takes. This is the practice that we do every day, just seeing our thoughts. And as we do, we let them go. Let's read the next two verses.
Mark?
However great may be their peril, people will by reflex guard their eyes. And likewise, I, whatever dangers come, must not fall down beneath defilement's power. Better for me to be burned to death, and better to be killed, my head cut off. At no time will I bow and scrape before that foe of mine, defiled emotion.
Just more resolve. And then he says, then a very short one, thus in every time and place, I will not wander from the wholesome path. And then again, this is his resolve to overcome habitual neuroses, which we engage in as we sleep. We're sort of sleepwalking. And Trungpa Rinpoche advises us to look for gaps in our egos, gaps of awareness. He said that there are, I think, 3 or 4 moments naturally occurring of gaps in your thoughts and your ego. One is the moment of orgasm. One is the moment of death. One is a sudden shock. And one is an unexpected surprise. These are sort of natural gaps that occur. But we can also just remember to come back to this, to the open space of awareness. We can do it ourselves. But then there are these 4 natural ways that gaps occur: orgasm, death, sudden shock, and unexpected surprise. This leads us to great and true pride in awareness and ease. Just as people will by reflex guard their eyes, so I will return to awareness from kleshas shenpa, to an open heart and mind in every circumstance. So let's read the next two verses.
Okay, Steve?
Uh, 63 and 64.
62 and 63, I think.
No, we're in 63 and 4. I just read 62.
Okay.
Like those who take great pleasure in their games, whatever task the bodhisattvas do, let them devote themselves without reserve, with joyfulness that never knows satiate. People satiate. People labor hard to gain contentment, though success is very far from sure. But how can they be happy if they do not do those deeds that are the source of joy to them?
So we're being enjoined to enjoy our lives in awareness and compassion, just as people take great pleasure with their games. I wrote myself a note. I'm going to tell you a little story about Trungpa Rinpoche. When he was in Scotland, before he came to the United States, two girls from a towny British boarding school called Benenden, sisters, decided they were going to go up to this Buddhist monastery and visit and see what it was like. So Diana and Tessa Pybus, their name was, did that. Diana fell in love with Trungpa Rinpoche and he with her. She was, I think, 15 at the time, and he must have been about 29 or so, 28, something like that. They married. Their mother, Elizabeth, whom I knew very well, was high society, English high society. She had actually come from a very poor family in South Africa, in an area called Bloemfontein, which is renowned for poverty. But then she had become an opera singer in England, and she had married an upper-class English barrister, and herself had been presented to the Queen. So she was up there socially. She was infuriated. She referred to Trungpa Rinpoche as, how did she put it, that nigger something, that nigger seducer. Use the word nigger in her English way, and she hated him. And he and Diana, they married, and they moved to the United States. Eventually Tessa did too. And later in my life, I married Tessa. It was after Trungpa Rinpoche had died. Eventually, Elizabeth, lonely in England, started making gestures of coming here, and she wound up in San Francisco. Tessa and her then husband, I'm blanking his name, but I know that guy's silly, invited her to come to Boulder. And she did, staying at their house. Trungpa Rinpoche wanted to win her over. So he invited her to dinner. She amazingly accepted the invitation. He sent a car to pick her up. And when the driver of their car came in, she came down the stairs, took one look at him, and said, no, he has to come himself. And she left, and she went back up the stairs. So the driver went back and got Trungpa Rinpoche, brought him to where Elizabeth was staying with her daughter and son-in-law. This time she came down the stairs, and he kneeled down on one knee to ask her to come with him. She came, had a wonderful time. Eventually, she became a total devotee. I mean, not in the sense of like a religious sense, but just she loved him. And she also became a doyen, as it were, of our Sangha. She had parties, endless parties, and I became good friends with her. She had enormous social graces. The first time I ever met her, I stood in a reception line with my wife, Christy, and our daughter, who was an infant. And we were introduced, John and Christy Baker, and our daughter, Cara. About 3 or 4 months later, I stood in another reception line. And when I got to Elizabeth, she looked up at me and said, "Oh, how are Christy and Cara?" I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. This is a social grace that people cultivated. And she threw parties, and we became very good friends. And she always asked me to accompany her and hold her arm. She had Parkinson's disease, eventually died of it. And she shook. And when she threw a party, she would shake even more because it was a social event. And so anyhow, I'm telling you this story because I think it demonstrates the kindness and the warmth and the value of love and friendship that is being presented here. Like those who take great pleasure in their games, whatever task the bodhisattvas do, let them devote themselves without reserve, with joyfulness that never knows satiety. Satiety. I think that's that.
Satiety.
Huh?
Satiety.
Yeah. People labor hard to gain contentment, though success is very far from sure. How can they be happy if they do not do those deeds that are the source of joy to them? And I told that story about Trungpa Rinpoche because I felt like he would do anything to affirm, bodhicitta and joy and love. 765, let's do 65 and 66. Yes.
Okay. Sarah?
And since they never have enough of pleasure, honey on the razor's edge, how could they have enough of merit, fruits of which are happiness and peace?
Read 66 also.
Sorry. The elephant, tormented by the noonday sun, will dive into the waters of a lake, and likewise I must plunge into my work, that I might bring it to completion.
So here we're being exhorted to put our enthusiasm and efforts into the long-range happiness of the bodhisattva life rather than into short-term benefits. And I think of this every time I sit down to watch TV and kill some time. So like the elephant cooling itself in the lake, I will plunge into the activity of a bodhisattva, the life free from confusion and klesha. And it's characterized by practice, by study, and by being of benefit to others. How can we do that? And I've had the idea, which I throw out here to you, that we might take on a project together, all of us, involving some national organization that helps other people. It could be something like an organization that gives food to other people, and we volunteer to deliver it, or something. I just threw out the possibility, the idea to you. So let's read chapter 767 and 768.
Okay, Mark?
If impaired by weakness or fatigue, I'll lay the work aside, the better to resume, and I will leave this task when it's complete, all avid for the work that's next to come. As seasoned fighters face the swords of enemies upon the battle line, I'll lightly dodge the weapons of defilement and strike my enemy upon the quick.
And of course, his enemy is klesha, defilements, and strike my enemy upon the quick, ego. So this is the importance of rest moderation, learning to pace oneself, avoiding burnout. And this ends the four powers. And the final verses, in which we're going to read now, present various attributes of enthusiasm. First, nimbleness, lightness, not being deadly serious about the path, not being heavy-handed in the war against the kleshas, which is another ego trip. So we bring some lightness in, enthusiasm, like children at play, like a hot elephant diving into a lake, like a joyful horse or a breeze of delight. From the beginning, it may be difficult, and only seasoned fighters will be able, but refraining from kleshas and being open to whatever arises is like learning to drive a car. This is Pema. It gets easier with practice. It's easier with practice, just like learning to drive a car. You remember? First time I got into a car, I crashed it into a telephone pole. It's true. It takes time to become skilled at helping others on the Bodhisattva path. So keep your sense of humor and playfully catch yourself whenever you get uptight. Your lightness and confidence will grow. So let's read 769.
If in the fray the soldier drops his sword, in fright he swiftly takes it up again. So likewise, if the arm of mindfulness is lost, in fear of hell, I'll quickly get it back.
Yeah, there it is. Mindfulness is so important. Coming back from dreams. And this is the quality of urgency, that it's very urgent that we do this. It's not, we all say, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll meditate tomorrow morning. It's now. The combination of lightness and urgency works. The trick is to see when you get hooked, and then gently, but urgently, come back to the present moment. Like a soldier dropping his sword in battle, we can't be nonchalant about losing our mindfulness, because when we do, the kleshas move in like a band of thieves. And suddenly we're lost in some klesha. Depression, jealousy, hatred, anger. They're so entertaining. That's the thing about those kleshas. They keep us really busy. So let's read 70. Yeah, 70.
Okay, Steve?
Just as poison fills the body, borne on the current of the blood, likewise evil, when it finds its chance, will spread and permeate the mind.
And don't we know this to be true? That when you find yourself lost in some nasty dream, and it's just taken over your mind and you can't get rid of it, and you come back to it again and again, and maybe you even make notes about what to do about it. Read the next verse.
Okay, Carolyn?
I will be like a frightened man, a brimming oil jar in his hand, and menaced by a swordsman, saying, spill one drop and you shall die. This is how practitioners should hold themselves.
That's pretty extreme, but it's joining us to being really mindful and not give up, not give in. Next verse.
Philip?
Just as a man would swiftly stand if in his lap a serpent were to glide, if sleep and lethargy beset me, I will speedily repulse them.
More resolve to be mindful of the urgency of it. And I'm reminded when you get to the Vajrayana and there's some of the text, there's a classic line enjoining each one of us to practice as though your hair were on fire, as though the practice might put it out. Or maybe you don't have much time because it's going to burn you up. But that's a common injunction in Vajrayana text. Practice as if your hair were on fire. Let's read the next one.
Judith?
Are we at 73?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every time then that I fail, I will reprove and chide myself, thinking long that by whatever means such faults in future shall no more occur.
And the fault is losing one's mindfulness and drifting off into klesha, into dream. So this is not about guilt. Guilt is another klesha. It's another form of self-attack. But it's about bringing our failings in our mind to honest self-awareness. Guilt is a waste of your time. Total waste of time. Worse, it's self-attack. And it's very entertaining. Give it up. We need to build on the foundation of maitri, loving kindness towards ourselves, to stop harming ourselves so that in the future these faults will no longer occur. So when you find yourself lost in a klesha, don't beat yourself up about it. That's another one. You just see it, let it, and it goes. It goes. You see it, you're developing kindness for yourself. Let's read the next two.
Sarah?
At all times and in any situation, how can I make mindfulness my constant habit? Thinking thus, I will desire to meet with teachers and fulfill the proper tasks. By all means, then, before I start some work, that I might have the strength sufficient to the task, I will recall the teachings upon carefulness and lightly rise to what is to be done.
More resolve and praises of mindfulness, living life fully and effectively and compassionately, which can only be done with mindfulness. It's not a matter of being goody two-shoes, of being some kind of pious, good person. It's a matter of genuine inspiration through wakefulness. And by coming awake, by giving up our kleshas, we can connect with true compassion and happiness and compassion for others. And now the last one.
Mark?
Just as flaxen threads waft to and fro, impelled by every breath of wind, so all I do will be achieved, controlled by movements of a joyful heart.
So we're being enjoined again to connect with genuine joy, the joyful heart. And then all of this, mindfulness and all the rest, will be like flaxen threads wafting to and fro, impelled by every breath of wind, effortless. So that ends the chapter, and we could have a discussion. Oh, we've got some hands up.
They may be residual readers, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They were. Complaints? Praise? He has such faith in us. It's such a positive view of human potential. Any speculations about why there are no comments or questions, or was this just too overwhelming, this chapter? No?
Well, Fred has his hand up.
Fred, good.
Yeah, it seems like he's, Chogyam Trungpa summarized this chapter up pretty well when he said to cheer up.
Right. Which he said over and over again. So many times. Thank you.
It is.
All the people in this room are very devoted meditators and studiers. What do you think about the way he's so optimistic about where we're going, our practice, our progress? Philip.
Well, I think it's true. It works. I think he's justified. It's self-reinforcing. Because it works today, you're motivated to do it tomorrow. And the more you do it, the better you get. The more you look, it's not like looking for your mind. The more you look, the more you see. The broader your vision becomes.
And what else?
So there's some courage that comes with that. There's certainly lots of curiosity that comes with that. There's a streamlining that happens. The stuff that doesn't matter gets forgotten, left behind, left to one side. So there's some acceleration. And things fit into place. All the things that used to be this thing over here and that thing over there, they start to come together. And it makes more and more sense. So all of those things reinforce each other. Humans are subject to habit. It becomes a habit. It becomes a lifestyle. It becomes uncomfortable if you don't meditate. It becomes something you do on and off the cushion. It just becomes a way of being.
That's something my first meditation instructor said. It starts to feel like how you feel when you don't brush your teeth. You become aware of it, and it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it's grungy.
Exactly.
I think that also you can tune into moments of real joy by if put it another way, giving up self-doubt, which is so like an undercurrent in neurotic mind, self-attack, self-criticism. And it's steering us towards love of life, which I think each one of us could connect with. Mark, you have your hand up.
I was just thinking when I was just listening to the readings today, how, I remember at the beginning of the book, being reminded that this is not, he's just kind of talking to himself. And you guys mentioned it last week again. And I think that may be one of the greatest gifts from the book, is that when he's screaming at him, he's screaming at himself. The points I made and I was upset about was But that's the self-doubt we all have from one time to another when we're angry that we're not progressing, or and for him to show that, to be so generous and show that this brilliant man had this at the same time was willing to expose his weak underbelly, I think, and talk about his samsaric moments. I think that's what they were. And again, you mentioned this, but it took me a while to really remind myself how important that was, that statement, that this was when the beginning of the book, I'm writing this for myself, and it's like he was having a conversation with himself, this book. Am I right about that?
Seems to me. What do you think, Michael?
Absolutely. There are times when he's talking to as much to himself as to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't have forever. Why am I spending my life on things that aren't important instead of spending my life on the things that are important? He's, trying to wake himself up. Part of the Shambhala teachings at Trungpa Rinpoche was there was an element of rouse yourself. And I think that's what he's trying to do, is rouse himself, remind himself, think about these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. It's great. It's really great. And this, the end of this chapter is wonderful. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's right. She called him, that N word, magician. That was the second word. I forgot. It was magician. N word magician.
Yeah.
And she became so in love with him. And I loved Elizabeth too. I really did. We went to movies together. I remember they were taking her to the movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. The old movie, The Ruling Class. Terrific film. And so appropriate for her. Anyhow.
The Brits were such colonialists. It must have been really terrifying for her.
She did it. She
Black
went
magician, right? It's like your worst nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, her husband was Doug Pennick at that time. He's an old song member.
Sarah?
Thanks, Mark, for that reminder. This section to me felt like that super motivational speech by the coach before the team goes on and plays the biggest game of their life. So I feel really inspired. Go team.
I remember those coaches. Well, we just keep practicing and bringing our sitting practice into our daily lives, becoming aware of the kleshas and letting them go, and coming back to this. Isn't it ironic that all we have to do is be here? That's the be all end all. Everything unwinds from there. Everything develops from there. Just relaxing into this present moment without agenda, without purpose, but with appreciation, intelligence, heart, which all come naturally. We're not forced. I've often thought about Meals on Wheels. I think they're national, aren't they? Meals on Wheels. That we could, as a group, go and volunteer to deliver food to people who need it. That's just one possibility. And maybe it's silly, but we can think about it. Mutual inspiration, inspiring each other. Anybody else? If not, we can end early. Fred again. You're muted, Fred.
Yeah, I get the sense that he has such confidence in his views. He also takes the approach of, pointing out how, the truth of impermanence, cause and effect, karma, right? He's saying that, we should constantly meditate and see karma. And then, just, I think the most convincing argument and the thing we most forget is the fruitlessness of samsara over and over again.
Indeed. Yeah. Our fears, which we entertain in our minds and let them direct us, direct our actions and our thoughts, and likewise our hopes. Both. It's amazing what we're being enjoined to do. We're being enjoined to kind of float free in the universe, taking whatever comes and relating to it fully. Meg. Oh, Meg, it's
actually me. But I'll speak for Meg. This is what she would say. This idea of self-doubt and confidence, how he's speaking of confidence in us, and we're building that through our practice and seeing our self-doubts. Just kind of relating it to how I may look out into the world with those that I judge and have my doubt in them. And when I see that that in myself, I would like to get to the point where I see confidence in my fellow human beings and society, and just the way he looks at us with confidence, and realize that we are all on this path, no matter whether we're daily meditators or struggling or that crazy person on the street. This is the path of this human form, and I see that all my fellow human beings deserve my confidence in them, and I think that would help me live a life of more compassion, and then best case scenario, that would resort back to having a deeper sense of compassion for myself and my own struggles through it. But I do appreciate that acknowledgement of self-doubt, because that is such a tough one, and it is so insidious, at least within myself. And those moments of confidence sure feel good.
Well said. Well said. Well, what do you think? Shall we end a little bit early? Anybody? Well, lots of people haven't spoken. Shinyi, how about you? You're practicing a lot.
Oh, well, I'm not sure. But I do want to say that I would love the idea of like a group project of doing something Bodhisattva-ish. But in my own case, I don't drive, so maybe I'll find some alternative. But I think it would be a good idea. Maybe like can come up with like some sort of informal session where we talk about or like post what we do. Anyways.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. The more difficulty we have in our lives, the more this speaks to it, I think. I know there's some people in this room who have a lot of difficulty in their lives. And he's really telling us to cheer up. Well,
How do bugs get enlightened? I mean, I just thought it was kind of weird that he talks. Even the insects will become. I mean, don't they have to transfer to the human realm eventually?
Well, that's part of it, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But
meditating.
Bear in mind, all of us have traveled through all the realms.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. And there's no guarantee that when we die, we'll be reborn as a human being. That's another reason to practice meditation. It's better to be reborn as a human being and have the opportunity to practice the Dharma. Well, okay, let's do the closing chant. Oh, that's right. Okay, here, I'll put this up. And I'm going to mute all. Who's leading?
I was going to fill in for Meg, if that's okay.
You're going to lead?
Yeah.
Great. So unmute yourself.
By the blessings of enlightened
and compassionate ones,
by the power of my positive actions of 3 times and my prayers of pure aspiration, may wars, conflicts, epidemics, and all other maladies dissolve in this world, and may the earth and all who live on this earth enjoy the abundance of well-being. May all learn to live lovingly with each other. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigden's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.
Thank you, John, Michael, everyone.
Michael, great class.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a mindful evening.
Be well.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Michael.
Yes.
Okay.
We need to get together and figure out how many pieces to cut the next chapter into.
I agree. Stop recording.
Oh,
stop recording.
Yes, I forgot. Hold on a second.